Hey loves, welcome to a much awaited video for me, which is the flip through, the part one flip through of the 2025 Magpie. And I say part one because this is only half of it. This portion is the one that includes the vertical weeklies and the monthlies of the Hobonichi Cousin. So we have the Hobonichi Cousin monthlies and vertical weeklies, and it includes all of the weeklies from the Take a Note. So I decided to bind those two together along with all of the other little like daily note related things. I did finish binding it. I didn't record the process of binding this portion because lordy lord, it was wild. I did add these washi tape here to the back. The washi tape is not securing anything, it's just decorative, so I will show you. A shout out to the creator who told me to add bookbinding cloth to the binding because that is literally game changer. I feel like as it is, I'm nervous about it. I don't think it's gonna. I put a lot of glue on this thing. I don't think it's gonna break. It is not perfect by any means, but it is a bound book. All of my different rings, as you will see momentarily, everything is in here and it's secured. So that's great. I also was able to adhere the original covers for the Take a Note. So this is the front and back cover that I had for my Take a Note before I unbound it. So the daily pages of the Hobonichi Cousin are going to have the covers of the Hobonichi Avec. Um, and so I still have to bind that one. And that one, I think I will kind of maybe go through a bit of the process because this was not as easy or as simple as I had anticipated. What I did was the double fan method. And because there's so many stiff papers in here, it was really hard to flexibly move the spine in order to get the double fan method to work. So there was a lot of glue and there's a lot of areas where it is not perfect. But like I said, nonetheless, it's bound. It pretty much lays flat except in the areas where you have like the random little bits of paper. You see, like, because this is so stiff, it just tends to like do that. But okay, don't damage your book. If I kind of like force it a bit, it definitely does lay relatively flat. And honestly, it's not like I need it to lay flat when I'm not writing in it, so it's no big deal. But you can see there's definitely sections where it does lay flat just fine. And yeah, I have had no issues with it so far. The only thing that is pending for me to finish the binding on this one is to make a clear cover for it because even the codex cover doesn't fit on this. So I'll have to make my own. There's a video that I have for that, which is using the method that librarians use to cover books for libraries. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I'll update you guys with that in one of the monthly updates. But yeah, I'm going to add a the flip through. It took me 10 minutes to flip through every single page of this of this journal at like a normal speed. 10 minutes. That's how big it is. There are videos in my channel for every single month that I used this journal. And so even though they're not all inclusive, there's definitely a lot of flip throughs that you guys can watch. So I'm not gonna go into commentary on all of the pages. That would simply take too long. But it was a joy to work in this journal. I have a few different um, types of pages in here. If you're new, basically I decided to unbind the Hobonichi Cousin and the Take a Note last year and kind of experiment with all sizes because I really got into rings. So I have some of my pocket pages here, which are music related spreads, which really this should have gone in the Hobonichi Cousin, the daily page section binding, but I put it here. Um, there's the Take a Note pages. I started the year in a traveler's notebook, so there's a few traveler's notebook pages as well, interspersed throughout. At one point towards the middle of the year, I also kind of like went back to traveler's notebook, which is that one that I showed earlier. So you have this like random bit of TN paper in here. I was using personal size rings, as you guys know, for a good amount of in between August and September for daily logging. So that's embedded in here. And I did different styles in the Take a Note for daily logging as well. Whether that was kind of like doing a day or using the columns as is for each independent day. one of my favorite spreads is over here. I tried different things up here at the top, whether that was tracking what I ate, tracking the weather, tracking how much coffee I consumed when I woke up, when I went to sleep, as sort of like a check in system. I did that for a little bit as well. But even before I used this as a daily log, I was using it for my pebbles and wins and my gratitude. Um, use that a little bit. Let's see, what else did we do in here? At one point, I decided I didn't want to use each column as a day, and so I kind of just did it as I was daily logging in my traveler's notebook back in the day, which is basically just writing as I need to, and some days will have more and some days will have less, but it kind of like made it a little bit more dynamic in that sense, and I used that for a little while as well. I really was getting into fountain pens towards the latter half of the year. Well, actually, all of 2025, really. I was experimenting with either doing like a color per spread, or you can see here, 2 different colors, a color per week, like I showed earlier here. So you can see the color for the whole spread here versus a day, or a color per day. I did as well a few times, as you can see. I tried doing media logging on this weekly section. There was that was, I think, my most unsuccessful part of media logging, or rather, my most unsuccessful part of the take a note was that section. At some point, I used trackers. Here's how I mentioned where I had like one color for the entire week. This is one of my favorite spreads for sure. But then towards the end of the year, I wasn't really inspired to be in the take a note, but I was using a lot of pockets and memo pads and stuff like that. And I decided to use this as an archive. So I would glue in the pages nonetheless. And I have kind of like a visual idea of when I was journaling, because I have the days, right? Like I can see that I journaled this much on the 10th, but this much on the 12th, and nothing on the 11th, nothing on the weekend, which is not unusual for me. So I can kind of see, what days I was journaling and what days I wasn't. And I was able to use different papers. Towards the end of the year, I started playing around with marbling and suminagashi. So there's some tester papers that I ended up gluing up in here. And yeah, so it was very much experimental. Same with the vertical weeklies. I tried quite a few things. I am someone who is not very consistent with the vertical weeklies as much as I love them. When I first started using them, I used them to track the media log in just a different way, in a more of a time-based way. And that worked for a little bit, but then it didn't work anymore. And so at one point I was doing lyrics from my first songs. Really love this. It kind of creates a found poetry type situation, which I really liked, but fell off of that. And then I was using it as I went back to the timeline. This is one of my favorite spreads of like all of my journals from 2025. I love it so much. I love the combination of the colors and the tip-ins and um the things that I pasted in. The fact that Luffy says, "Huh? Blonde? Only Sanji's blonde," when he literally has a brother who's blonde. Like, it's ridiculous. And yeah, I tried different layouts in here. It ended up being like a companion to the daily pages. But there were a lot of sections of daily logging as well in here, which is why I ended up gluing it with the take a note. So different styles. And I'll make a full video after I have both sections bound to talk about the Magpie in a little bit more depth, and why I found it to be such a freeing experiment to do in 2025, and the ways that doing this type of journaling, allowing myself to do it, has impacted my journaling now. But it was definitely a joy. And yeah, catch you guys in the next video. Hopefully I'll be able to bind the daily pages soon and be able to do a full flip through of that. We'll see. It was so nerve-wracking, guys. But yeah, I'll catch you guys later.